With almost 200 songs in their catalog, Iron Maiden still have only 4 instrumental tracks.
Yeah, unbelievable.
With the last one released almost 40 years ago.
It's just outrageous.
So, as a part of our Up the Iron series, let's first of all take a look at some of the lesser known facts about all of them, and then hopefully answer the question why Iron Maiden did not only suddenly stop playing those live, but also stopped writing such songs. Here you go. The first instrumental track in the band's career is, surprise surprise, the song Transylvania, which of course was released on Iron Maiden's self-titled debut record. Yet in reality it was written long before that. And not even for this band. According to an old interview, Steve Harris wrote the melody for this track one night on his way back home from the club Cart and Horses, most likely sometime in 1975 for his old band Smiler, which by the way is either the happiest or the creepiest name for a band ever. Yet just like all the other songs written by Steve, Transylvania was deemed too complicated and thus was rejected by his old bandmate. But of course with his new group, this instrumental piece became a regular at Iron Maiden concerts. At least it was so for the next 6 years, all the way until 1982. In fact, it was one of the very first originals the band has played alongside the covers on other bands' tracks, with the earliest known appearance on the setlist being all the way back in 1976. By the way, according to Steve Harris, the original idea was to actually have vocals on Transylvania, and it even had a melody line for it. Yet after the band played it a couple of times, they realized that it sounds so good as an instrumental piece that they never actually bothered writing lyrics to it. Which, if you think about it, might actually be a good thing, because given its title, it could easily have been a cheesy song about my Romanian vampire namesake.
I am Dracula.
But anyway, since the Beast on the Road tour, Transylvania has been performed live only during their 1993 tour, and thus remains largely ignored for the past 30 years, which is still a much better result than by any other instrumental piece written by Maiden. In 1977, long before Killers was released, Iron Maiden already had an idea of having a grand intro piece for all of their live shows. And so Steve Harris and the band's then drummer Barry Thunderstick wrote an instrumental piece, The Ides of March, which was supposed to be played live before the band hit the stage. But of course, in those early days, there was a slight problem with this plan. Well, this song hasn't been recorded yet. And so, on at least one occasion, during their show at Ruskin Arms in 1979, the band actually picked up the instruments and played the Ides of March live. And just like on Killers, it was then followed by the early version of later on revised Wrathchild. Of course, there was another slight problem with this track. In 1978, after Thunderstick left Iron Maiden, he actually joined another new wave of British heavy metal band called Samson, ironically replacing Clive Burr in that position.
Good drummer. Great look, good drummer,
Good drummer.
And just like any self-respecting musician when switching a band, Thunderstick has also taken with him a couple of ideas he came up with during his time in Maiden.
Just like that.
And so in 1980, a year before Killers, Samson released a song called Thunderburst, which pretty much is the Ides of March played with an acoustic guitar intro and in a different key. By the way, a fun fact, a co-writing credit on Thunderburst is also given to Steve Harris and Bruce Dickinson, who of course was a Samson vocalist back then, before he joined Maiden a year later. But anyways, at 1 minute and 44 seconds, The Ides of March to this very day actually remains the shortest track in the Iron Maiden catalog. And in addition to that, actually is the very first history-related song in the band's career. Another instrumental track on the same record is of course the song Genghis Khan, which might not only be the most furious instrumental piece, but also is one of the most complex songs, and especially in its rhythm section on the band's sophomore album Killers. A sudden break and a switch in melody, which comes as a cold shower on your head right in the middle of the song, almost makes it seem like Genghis Khan was sewn together from two completely different tracks, which according to Steve Harris was done absolutely unintentional. Yet after seeing how much it freaked out their producer, the band absolutely loved that element of surprise and decided to simply go with it. By the way, apparently Genghis Khan was written on a very short notice and was right away created to depict a feeling and a sound of Genghis Khan's army going into a battle, which in my personal opinion, Iron Maiden have absolutely succeeded in. But most importantly, Genghis Khan was one of those songs which was also supposed to have lyrics on it. Yet after the band demoed it in the studio, they realized that the lyrics would only clutter this track and thus agreed to leave the vocal melody out of it, as well as not include any of the guitar solos on it. But anyways, during the 1981 tour in support of the band's second album Killers, both of the instrumental pieces, The Ides of March, although on tape, and Genghis Khan have been played every night the band hit the stage. Yet sadly, this masterpiece has been absolutely forgotten by the band ever since. After taking a break from instrumental pieces for 2 albums on their 5th studio record, Power Slave, Iron Maiden once again returned to their fans with a song with no lyrics on it. By the way, if you are not a native English speaker, like I am, obviously, then I guess it's worth pointing out that the title of this track simply means lost for words, big horror, spelled with its phonetic pronunciation. Many fans for some reason consider this track to be extremely weak, with some comments online even stating that it totally lives up to its name, calling it a big horror on an otherwise perfect album. What? Yet I personally absolutely do not agree with this assessment, as yes, it might actually not be as strong as some of the other instrumental pieces written by Iron Maiden, but let's not forget what kind of songs we're comparing it to.
Exactly.
Yet I actually realized that although no, I don't consider it the strongest song this band has ever written, but I actually never ever skip this track when listening to Power Slave. And yet, at the same time, it is by comparing Lost for Words' Big Aura to the other instrumentals written by Maiden that we can actually understand why this band has stopped writing such songs. Part of the reason why Iron Maiden switched vocalists in 1981 was the musical direction in which the boys wanted to take this band after using up those songs which they have written during the rise of the new wave of British heavy metal movement. In other words, Steve Harris and the team wanted to step away from the influence punk rock had on heavy metal in the early days of Iron Maiden. And this direction is of course very vivid on Number of the Beast, yet has been finally cemented on the band's 4th studio output, Peace of Mind. By the late 80s, Iron Maiden have completely changed the composition of their songs, when the vocal parts were not anymore laid on top of the existing instrumental parts, but instead actually used in the song's composition as, let's say, an additional instrument, many times weaving the main melody of the song. And so when Iron Maiden came back with an instrumental piece on Power Slave, it actually might have sounded empty for many fans. And let's be honest here, compared to the first 3 songs, it most likely is, as by 1984 the band has already completed this switch to the new Iron Maiden sound, to the point that, if you ask me, Lost for Words' Big Aura being the only out of the 4 instrumentals done by Iron Maiden on which a vocal part would not only not clutter this track, but might have actually enhanced its sound. And since then, this process has of course been irreversible, with Iron Maiden continuously changing and evolving its style, and with vocal lines being an essential part of the new musical composition by this band. And if we're being very honest, it is most likely thanks to this ability to move away from the past and move away from the comfortable sound and the compositional structure that they have developed in the early days, which has helped Iron Maiden become one of the greatest heavy metal bands on the planet. But anyways, which is your personal favorite instrumental done by Iron Maiden? Please let us know in the comments. And as always, I just wanted to thank you guys all for this amazing heavy metal community that we have, and for all the support you're showing to me, this channel, and Ukraine through this very, very difficult time. We will prevail. Slava Ukraini!